And we're live. Hi, guys. We're going to give it a couple of minutes for everyone to gather. And meanwhile, I'm going to blast to my Telegram chats. But Mia, tell us, how was Denver?
Denver was exhausting, to be honest. I don't know why I did not sleep. And I came back and I realized like nobody slept. It was the dry air. So I
Mhm.
think that was the most annoying part. In terms of like the event and everything, I think I don't know why the feed is filled with so much negativity and like people saying like this was not good, that was not good. I feel like I met like some
Mhm.
really good people, and also like this was high signal. Like everybody who showed up, everybody who came to the events and everything, the concentration of like the top tier crypto people was like super high, I would say. Or maybe it's just the events that I got access to or went to. But I had a great time, except the sleep. I think it was pretty fun.
Yeah, I had the real FOMO, but at the same time, everyone was saying that it was kind of like mixed feelings. I
Hmm.
heard from a lot of people that it was depressing as a general mood.
Yeah, so I feel like this was my first ETH Denver, to be honest. So I cannot compare it to the previous ones, but a lot of people told me like it was not as cold and depressing as it is usually in Denver. So it was much better. I'd say, but it sure was depressing. I'd say, like especially like because of the sleep, I was like so grumpy because like I was not sleeping, and the jet lag was not that bad because it's just New York to Denver, so it's like just 3 hours.
Yeah.
But still, like I wake up pretty early, so maybe that fucked up a little, and I was sleeping late in Denver, so that messed the jet lag a little more. I expected more of the marketing events also in Denver, which did not happen, which I felt a little
Really?
upset about. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I I thought it's
Surprising.
gonna be like as big and happening and happy as Denver, in DevCon, sorry,
Yeah,
but that did not happen. So a
DEFCON
little
was like marketing events on steroids. I think I've
yes.
never, like in 5 years in crypto, I've never seen so many marketing events. And I didn't even realize that so many marketers exist.
Yeah, yeah, I know. And this was like this time like hyped with a number of events. There was the Safari event. There was, I think, a few more that popped up here and there. So I thought it's going to be slightly like 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 more of a bang and like a little huge. But
Mhm.
I don't know. I did not feel like that could happen for whatever reason. Not at the scale that I had imagined in my
Mhm.
head, at least.
Yeah, makes sense. I
Yeah.
don't know. I've been in Denver just once. I
Okay.
loved it on one hand because I think it's a completely different crowd to
Hmm.
other events. Like it's kind of a mix of everyone and it's very builder heavy. But at the same time, it's very questionable as a location. And I was electrified. Like, I'm not even
Yeah.
kidding. I was
Yeah.
like, I think my skin was so dry that I was touching the bed linen and there was a current between like my hand and bed linen. Not even
Yeah. Yeah.
kidding.
Yeah.
I never
Oh my
had
God.
this in life before. So I'm like, I'm electric in Denver.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know why we've picked that as a location to do host a conference. There's not much to do in the city either. Like food also, like I would say
Mm.
limited options. Like not really much you can do in Denver except like mountain climbing or whatever, which is I don't know if it's for everybody.
Honestly, I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, crypto and locations, you can never know.
Yeah, but like aside of all these events, I feel like home is good. Like I am happy that I'm back in New York and back home. And I honestly enjoy like all your spaces. I enjoy the spaces that I do. I know so many Emily, Enrica are doing spaces. Dean is appearing on so many spaces. So I honestly like this chat. I feel like it's also like much higher quality
Mhm.
than like the 5 second catch up that you do in conferences. So I'm enjoying this. I like this more.
Yeah, I love it that now, like, I think we started the trend, probably Emily started this because she started screaming
Yeah.
first, yes, out of all marketers.
Uh-huh.
Shout out to Emily on
Yes.
every of my spaces.
Uh-huh.
But it's amazing because, like, now there are so many people who are new to our industry and there's like virtually nowhere to get education. And to be honest, I feel bad for people who are just joining because I think not so many teams have time to like properly coach someone and properly
Hmm.
onboard someone. So it's a bit tough. Like, unless you can get access to somebody like tweeting, doing spaces, and learning from them, it's difficult to get kind of like a mentor on the ground.
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely. And for like Web3 marketing, I would say there's no playbook also, right? Like you pretty much have to like yeah, figure things out. So I feel like all these
Mhm.
spaces are like super helpful. And yeah, and shout out to Emily for starting this. I think I've personally learned a lot from your spaces, from Emily's spaces, and also like all the groups that go around, like Safari, even Claire's
Yeah.
group, like the one that Emily is also running. Yeah,
Mhm.
learned a bunch, and also like I can like reach out to people there in the group whenever I have questions or anything, which also I feel like very supported as a marketer. So it's not like I'm going through all of this alone and I'm trying to figure it all on my own.
Yeah, true. We're like marketers united, and it's
Yeah.
almost like borderline marketers against founders now. What I'm sensing from crypto
Yeah.
Twitter. I
Yeah.
hope we reach the gap. But I think we have like quite a lot of people already watching.
Okay.
I'm super excited to start this chat because personally, I come from a content background, so
Hmm.
my I never do intro on those spaces. But my little intro is that I've been in marketing for 12 years. I started off as a Web2 marketer, actually not even in tech. I was working in luxury fashion. Then I had my own company in healthcare, and I was always basing marketing on content. Like, we
Mm.
literally, for my healthcare clinic, we had clients from Middle East, from like everywhere abroad, who came through Instagram posts, who came through long form articles, like through SEO and everything. And I think it's such a huge, like a growth hack that not so many people in crypto use. I don't know
Right.
for which reason. And my crypto work always start marketing from content. But I feel like, again, not so many people in the space, especially founders, understand what is content, what to do
Hmm.
with it.
Hmm.
That's why I wanted to have a chat with you as an expert, um, to see like whether there is a playbook, what strategies are there. But let's start with your intro. What do you
Yeah.
do?
Yeah, absolutely, Xenia. So, for those of you who see me for the first time, I'm Mia. I am known on crypto Twitter recently to like wage this war against like follower bots and stupid airdrops and crypto KOL campaigns in the industry. And I focus a lot on like doing growth and content organically to get any Web3 product or protocol to the front, or even to build hype in the space. My previous backgrounds, I've been in marketing for about 5 years now. I used to work with ClickUp, which is a very popular project management tool in the space, and Time Doctor in SaaS, when both of them were startups. And now they are both billion-dollar companies. So my content journey actually started there. So the peak of the pandemic, I wrote a lot of SEO content. Created a lot of content for both these companies, and made them like rank on Google and out there on socials and all places, before coming to Web3. And when I started in Web3, also the first gig that I picked up was doing content at Moonpay. There was this other company called Nest, which was Mark Cuban funded, big at the time of 2021, that I got involved with. And then, Moonpay, Ledger, ThirdWeb, QuickNote, all of these companies doing content over them. And slowly I've pivoted my agency to being a full suite growth and marketing agency, but content and organic marketing is still the foundations. And I very much emphasize on building a strong foundations before you do any of the growth campaigns on top.
That sounds amazing. I wonder, what is content? Because content can be
Yeah,
a million things, right? And I feel like even from my recent chats with founders, a lot of them are like, "Oh, okay, so it's social media." I'm like, "No." "Oh, it's
right.
community." "No." "Oh, it's just a blog." I'm like, "No, it's not just a blog." So
Mm.
like, um, what do you allocate to content? Like, what is it actually, like, physically? What are shapes and
Yeah.
forms?
No, that's a great question to start with, actually, and you're absolutely right. Like words are used so interchangeably that we don't really know what is what. So content, I would say, most people equate it to social media when we speak of content, but content is essentially like communicating to your target audience. It can be in the form of text, it can be in the form of audio, it can be in the form of video, or a combination of any of these three things. So, content is anything that is communicating to your target audience. Yes, the channels that we use for communicating primarily then become social media, which could be like either putting out tweets on Twitter, or it could be creating videos on TikTok, or it could be like writing blogs on your website, or it could be, like creating, let's say, a campaign on your Discord. So wherever you're communicating with your target audience in whatever way, shape, or form, like that is content to me.
Yeah, it makes sense. I have the same take because I think content is actually anything, right?
Exactly.
Anything that's written, anything audio, visual, you can call everything content,
Hmm.
which makes it easier and makes it more complicated at the same time because you kind
Correct.
of don't know where to start. Do you have
Content, yeah, content I feel like is the means. It's
any?
the means for all your marketing. Like it's the it's the way, in which you run any marketing or growth campaign. Because like,
Mhm.
how will you do anything if it's not communicated across? Sure, there's strategy, but then there's the implementation, and like content and communicating, all of it is a key part of like all your growth and marketing campaigns and strategies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. I have two questions on the back of it. Where do you start when you're working? Like, let's say you work with the project that doesn't do any content currently. Where
Mhm.
do you start, and what kind of starter pack you need? Like, what kind of information do you require from founders, from the team, and so
Yeah.
on?
Good question. So the way I look at like just generally like full suite marketing or growth campaign, I would say is like in five different phases, at least the way we do it for founders. So the first phase, when if you really don't have any marketing or any content going out, is really the foundations. And there are three critical components that come in like foundations for us, like branding and positioning, like the social media, and then there is the community. So if a company has like no content whatsoever right now, the place to start is branding and positioning. um, Branding is like the emotional component of positioning, and positioning is actually like uh, the written format of whatever is the positioning that you come up with. Positioning is like how do you differentiate yourself in the market, and what is the narrative you're going after in the Web3 world. So that is probably like the first step. So the questions to ask, when you are thinking about your branding and positioning, is like, one is like, what is the sandbox I want to play in? So like, who are you competing against? I feel like is the most important question to ask there. What I am and what I'm not. So like, again, just clarity on like these three things, and then what do you want to be called in the space. Like once you understand like what sandbox you're playing in, who you're competing with, who you're not competing with, you usually like understand, okay, like how do I want to actually describe my product or protocol. um, that is the starting point of positioning. And then positioning is not like a once done and over exercise. It has to be like communicated, and like it has to be consistently communicated. The message has to consistently be communicated to your audience. So branding is like the emotional component of like communicating this, and then your community and social media become like the other channels through which you keep communicating your positioning again and again. So first step, if you don't have any piece of content, is like figuring out like what your positioning is, what you want to be called in the space, and like making sure that your audience understands what your product or protocol is about and what you're here to do.
Yeah, I agree with this. I was nodding a lot.
Okay, okay.
Like another thing that I noticed, I think what teams shy away from is repeating their positioning and narrative.
Right.
What is your take on that? Like, let's say
I
I have a question quite often, like, okay, now we have a narrative. What do we do with it? Like, where do you place it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I feel like this is where most companies slip, because like, again, ideas are not important, execution is more important. Like I think everybody pretty much knows it, but like how does it look like when it comes to positioning? It looks like, you having consistent branding, you having like a consistent voice and tone when you're communicating to your audience, and a consistent messaging also, that you're trying to uh, like instill in the minds of like the target audience that you're going after. A clear call to action is also a very important step. So when we're just starting out, like while we're doing branding and positioning, we also want to understand as to what your funnel looks like. So we have a very clear understanding of, okay, we are creating all this content on Twitter, but what is the goal of the content? Like that is, let's say, solving for the awareness piece. We want to have a very clear call to action of, okay, like what do you want your users to do from here on? Do you do you want them to be part of the community? Do you want them to visit your website? Do you want them to sign up somewhere? Like, what exactly is the next call to action? So three key things. Like, one is like, how are you creating the relatability, which is like, through your branding and the consistency of your branding. What that means is like, if there is some meme that's going viral and your brand, let's say, has a color of like lilac, like that is the color you're trying to go after, and like you have your own mascot and stuff. Like if that meme is trending on the feed, like you cannot randomly pick that meme and like try to create some content out of it. Like, you have to be consistent with your voice and tone. So create like a branding and positioning guide that you can adhere to and that all your content adheres to. So like have relatability, like create good content which is consistent with your positioning and your branding. Then like put out like one consistent message which is around, what your product and protocol is and what is the message that you want to put out in the audience, and then have one clear call to action. So these are like three important things like that every piece of content that you're putting out should roughly have, or the buckets of content that you're creating like should ensure that all of these three things are taken care of.
I really love how structured it is. I'm personally a big fan of like one, two, three, go.
Yeah, frameworks, yes.
Yeah, exactly. Because I think like our space is difficult enough. So like as much as we
Yeah,
can simplify and like if we can create some kind of formula that works, just go for it.
yeah. Hmm.
And that's like on the back of what you said. Um, I really like this idea, but there are two things that I wanted to run by you. How do you feel about like you say that the branding should be consistent? Does
Hmm.
it mean that you use exactly the same phrase that you coined more or less everywhere? Like, let's say your Twitter bio, your like other socials, this is how you present yourself, this phrase is in your blurb, and just everywhere? Or do you mix and match, or like, do you test different narratives against each other?
That is a good question. So a couple of things here. One is um just give me 1 second. I don't know why I have a God. Okay. So sorry. A couple of things when you're thinking about your narrative. Um, like one is the space all in all is very much driven by what is happening at the macro. So you cannot like deny just the reality of things. So you need to separate a few things. Like one is the utility of your product and what your product is here to do, and the other one is like macro narratives that keep happening and that keep changing. Let's say every few weeks or months or whatever is the case. So what your product is here to do will always stay constant. The narrative that you create around it or the story that you create around it might evolve over a period of time. Um, this is for all. I'm speaking specifically for all products and protocols that have already crossed product market fit. So this is not for those behind. So for everybody who has crossed product market fit, I feel like you know uh, like the product messaging has to be separated from the narrative messaging. The narrative messaging should evolve ideally as you go about in the market, and as you profess your content. The product messaging should ideally stay consistent, and should also expand over a period of time as you expand into the range of products also that you're building on top.
Yeah, I agree. I think with because I recently focused more on new protocols. I think
Hmm.
another thing that is always a question, like how to go about the narrative, when you have some kind of a grand vision. Let's say
Hmm.
you're trying to bring Web to blockchain, but
Hmm.
obviously there's so many protocols who are promising the same.
Right.
But at the same time, like there are a lot of players now who have like a very clear path to that.
Hmm.
So this is great because it's very like clear call to action immediately and the grand vision as well. But at the
Hmm.
same time, it's always challenging. How would you create the narrative? Like, would you base it on immediate steps, like what they can immediately offer, or on the big vision?
Um, that is a good question. And like, there's this one product messaging guy that one of my friends introduced me to. God, I forgot his name. He's pretty popular on LinkedIn, and he has this whole product marketing suite of things. Let
Mhm.
me try to find his link or whatever. I think that will be really helpful. So he talks about how to do product messaging, right? The
Mhm.
problem with all the Web2 advice on like how to message your product is like Web3 is
Mhm.
like so dynamic and changing all the time. Like it's very difficult to like um, to 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 do a narrative and a messaging right, because like you're
Mhm.
usually trying to sell this vision. Where it gets tricky because your community member is also your like your investors. So what this product guide tells you is like, hey, write your messaging as it relates to your users, not as it relates to your investors. So don't sell the grand vision, sell, what the product is right now. Web3 gets tricky because like your community members are also your investors in some way, shape or form, because like they're holding your tokens, right? So this is where it gets confusing is what I feel like. One bridge that I've found to effectively like like reconcile the two different sides is like do roadmaps. This is something that I strongly encourage like all founders and marketers out there. Like roadmap is really the bridge between what your product is right now versus what the vision you're selling. So I recommend that in all your narrative, in all your messaging, like sell the grand vision only, because like your token would always be more important than your product. Like you'll figure out the product as long as you have the cash and like everything in the bank. So the token is slightly sometimes more important than the product, and sometimes the token also precedes the product. So sell the big vision, but also make it very clear as to, hey, this is where the product is right now, and this is the roadmap that we are building towards. So that's the way I look at things.
I completely agree. I have the same take because I think I shared this take a couple of times on my Twitter page because I think that in crypto it's easier to sell air in some shape or form. Like it's easier to sell Grand Vision. That's
Hmm.
something that's immediately available. I
Right.
personally think it's just because, like we're overloaded with information and we're so
Mm.
used to things like revolutionize the space or something that like everyone laughs at this, but we're like innovative, cutting edge. Okay, I'm buying. And
Mm.
in a lot of cases, like if people see something that is way smaller, they cannot see what is the upside from there.
Exactly. I had such an interesting conversation with one of the founders. I was like, okay, you have a great product, it's making revenue, it's doing all these crazy things. And he said to me something which I found really sad. He said, yeah, it doesn't matter, but I'm sad because I could not raise all this money because like my investors are anchoring to the revenue I'm making and not the potential upside or the dream that I could sell them.
Yeah, I had
Yeah.
exactly the same conversation a couple of weeks ago, and founders told me that the fact that they are like bringing a lot of business tactics from Web 2 and they have
Uh-huh.
like a very clear path from zero to revenue on day one, this is something that their crypto investors did not enjoy. And
Exactly, because like everybody looks at just the vision and like doing the 100x, right? Like nobody wants to look at like, okay, what is the clear map or whatever. Everybody wants to like sell the vision and like I would say ride the speculation almost and like make money off of that versus like something that's actual and real, which is, to be honest, like really sad.
it's sad and it's very counterintuitive in the long run because like you need utility for the token for token to start pumping.
Hmm.
And basically, one of the ways to get utility to your token is revenue share, which I think is like the best way. But in this case, like it's tricky to do this legally and from tax perspective, especially if your team members are US based.
Hmm.
But I think this is like the holy grail, like protocols that can actually figure out how to share the revenue with their users. This is like an immediate catch for Web3 and Web2 audiences because then it's like you can basically tie the price of the token to
Hmm.
something more tangible and you can get like token upside, you can get cash on top of that. You're actually incentivizing your community members to become your users because they're interested in like getting you the revenue.
Right. And I feel like the macro is also shifting away from like VCs to like more community. And I feel like that is the hope out, where all of us realize like, hey, this is not sustainable. This is not how it can work in the long run. Like we better, switch to something which is sustainable and which is real and the way to go about it.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely a big shift because I remember that when I was just starting, we were like, we need investors like on the first screen. It has to be like backed by, like in huge logos, like colors, so everyone sees. And like literally each and every YouTuber, when they were doing some kind of a project review, the first thing that they were doing is checking what are the VCs that are backing the project.
Mm.
Now, I actually heard from a couple of founders that they think it's very tacky to put backed by on the website, or they want it somewhere, like under on like screen 5 or 4. They don't want it on the first screen because they don't think
Yeah.
it's very relevant. And they actually think that this is kind of like a cry for attention.
No, like totally. I feel like the meta has shifted so much to like everything being like community driven and retail first. Also like personally like working with companies who are doing TGs a lot. So the
Mhm.
founder and the team would usually be like, okay, yeah, sure, like, but we don't want to show like the vesting is so small and whatever, whatever. We want all this cropped out because the community won't like it, and we don't want like people to know like this is he's our investor, these people are involved and all of that. So I
Mhm.
think definitely like the meta is shifting, and it's a nice shift. I see like founders like being more cautious, and being more careful with every communication that they put out and with every action that they are taking, which is really nice. It feels like everybody's like the community and the space itself is holding them accountable for everything.
For sure. I think it's interesting that you were saying they're becoming cautious because I think in a lot of
Yeah.
cases, especially new founders, they're becoming too cautious. I am quite often like asking the question like, what do we have on the roadmap? And my teams are like, nothing. I'm like, what do you mean? We have this partnership. We're launching this feature. We're like working on this, working on that. And they're like, yeah, but we cannot make content around it. What's your take? Like, what is, we figured out that we need to start with a narrative. What is the next step? Like, what do you need to convert it into content?
um Okay, I take that as two separate questions. Like one is like, what do you need to convert narrative to content, and the other one is like, like just posting announcements. So I'm surprised that you say, like a lot of these announcements are not treated as content, because like all I see when I look at like a lot of Twitter profiles is like this announcement, this integration, that integration, which is not narrative, FYI.
Yeah.
So
And
I feel like
integrations are not partners, like partnerships are not integrations. In a lot of cases, like nothing actually was done on the product side. It's just,
yeah.
hey, we chatted on Telegram. So here's our new partner.
Exactly, it's logo x logo. That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
So yeah, like what is partnership? Like, okay, like define what the partnership actually did. But yeah, that's a whole different discussion. So I think to define like how to create content out of a narrative, it's easy for me to first tell you like what not is not narrative and
Mhm.
storytelling, which is like you just putting out like a number of like, hey, like partnership or this announcement and that announcement, and that's also not how you build a genuine community.
Yeah.
um the worst thing you can do as a founder is to like automate your engagement. What I mean by that is like just bot all of your engagement just to show that there is hype around the project. um I like it or not, I've just come to a place where I've realized that hype is how the space is driven. So it's needed. I cannot say that you can completely eliminate that out. I what I would caveat and like say before that is, hey, you need to have strong foundations before you can do any of the hypey stuff. And that is very, very important. So let's say you're a new project starting out and you have your narrative dialed down, and like how do you start creating content off of it? There are a few questions like I would usually ask myself to create the content. One is whenever I'm starting out, and I'm releasing a workshop actually on socials, which has a lot of this input also. So one is whenever you're starting out, I'd say write an introduction of like what the protocol and product is here to do. Like make it a very nice thread, do a banger video along with it, and like just write what your product and protocol is here to do. Like everything that you like actually have done in your positioning exercise should actually come out as like a very strong piece of content that you can write on Twitter, and this messaging should be reflected in your sales, in your BD deck, everywhere. So once you've written that piece of thread, for purposes of like just simplifying the engagement, I'll talk about narrative only through like Twitter as a channel, right? There's other ways to doing it also, but like for Twitter, I would write a very long thread about what the product and protocol is, and I would pin it on my social. So that is like your pin tweet is like prime real estate. So I would just make sure that everybody knows what the product and protocol is from there. From here on, like to double down on the narrative, like it's funny when I talk about the narrative, I'm actually talking about building trust first, which I think is a very critical component of like anything. Because for me, narrative, like again, it shifts so much in the industry, and like to capture attention, sometimes you have to bank on the narrative. So I focus on like building trust first, which is I was about to say, the next most important tweak would be like introducing your team members. This is all building trust versus doing the narrative. But yes, building the trust first thing is more important, and caring about like your first 100 users is more important than going after narrative. So like just make sure that you've sorted like a good team content, a good product and protocol content, and all of that. After that, to like bank on the hype. Like the type of content pieces you want to create is like something which is very tapped into the macro. So like again, it really depends on how in depth you've done your branding and positioning exercise. So if you've done your branding well, you usually, and if you're, let's say, going after a mascot, you've made sure that you know that you want to ensure consistency of colors, and you want to like just go behind this one thing, then I would say, you know, you would use those mascots to create a content that's, you know, very relevant for you and that's relevant to the narrative you're trying to go after. I like to use Kaito for all of my research. So what I would do is I would go to Kaito, I would look at like the key terms that are the most relevant to me, and I would try to search for content pieces that are relevant to it. Anything that is tied to the macro and that is relevant, I would try to take inspiration from all of those content pieces and start creating some other variation of it that's more relevant to my POV. One thing, you know, that I think I talk a lot about in my workshop is like the first tweet that I did. I think I was at 1,500 followers, and I had not tweeted for like about 8 or 9 months at that point. So I did this one tweet which was tied to something happening at the macro, which was this side event that happened in Token 2049 on the Mother event. So like a number of strippers were there in a club, and like Iggy, she runs this Mother token. She did this side event, and there was this one video that went pretty viral of a guy watching a stripper dancing. So people are using it again and again to do different takes. And I did a marketing take on it, saying, you know, when a tech bro sees, when a Web3 founder or a tech bro sees a user for the first time. And that went pretty crazy. And for my size of audience, like 70 likes was like, oh my God, okay, something happened here. So yeah, that was me tying it to a macro
Mhm.
event. So tying to macro event is the quickest. Say it again?
That's brilliant. But I love your
Yeah.
content in general. But I think it's very like evident to me that you are kind of like timing it to the market. And this is what works.
Plain and simple. So like just even if you don't have title, like just go to Twitter search like and try to find out all the tweets that are
Mhm.
happening around the narrative you're trying to go after and take inspirations from them. This I would do in one side, and the other side what I would do is I would just ask, you know, what are some things about the industry that I feel like are just not true. What are some things that I can say, which if I put out, I'll be canceled in the industry for. So all of these are like hot takes for you, right? Controversial things that you can write about. And I'll try to see if there's a way I can bridge these two together based on my branding and whatever is most relevant to my
Yeah.
brand. And like just write out all your questions, get a good, like whoever is a social media person would usually ask you these questions. Very often this is especially true if you're trying to hire another social media marketing agency. How do you know if you've hired a good person is like if they get all the information from you and they just create the content, because you are in the trenches, you are living it day to day, right? You know the most
Mhm.
about your product, you know the most about your protocol, you know the most about, you know, the market that you are in. So a new person coming in, no matter how much they know about the space, they cannot be expected to like create content off of blue and like make it work. So a good
Exactly.
like a social media person would usually download the content from you, and they would use their copywriting skills and everything that they know about macro narratives and how to make any content work, and tie the two together and
Mhm.
create content off of it. So every week, like make sure that your social media person, whoever is creating the content, like does calls with you. They're
Mhm.
taking all the information download and matching this to everything that's happening in the macro, everything that they know about copywriting and all the type of content pieces that they know they should be creating.
True. I 100% agree. And I think that social media and community and like writing long form content are some of the most difficult jobs in crypto marketing because
Yeah.
you basically like when I'm hiring for those roles, I want somebody who lives inside Twitter, who lives in community, because you have to know it in and out. Like even things like, let's say, when I was working at Premier, our community guy, who was initially like a member of our community, and then we hired him for social and for community management. He just posted devs are cooking, and I was like, what's that? And it was literally like the first couple of hours of this meme that started to be trending. And it went just like it skyrocketed. And to me, I was like, it doesn't even mean much. But
Yeah.
it was a meme that was trending. We changed the visual to premium branding, and there you go. And
Yeah.
that's it. You don't even have to overthink it. And this is something that you cannot schedule, you cannot like account for it. You just post on the fly.
Yeah, exactly. And which is why I think the intern meta is like so awesome, because like it's more about like timing and being scrappy
Mhm.
versus, you know, you like really thinking, like scheduling and writing the tweets or whatever. It's more about just being there and understanding the culture, you know.
Yeah,
Culture and the timing, I would say.
For sure. But what is the balance though? Because you cannot schedule everything, but still you want to have some kind of a content calendar in place, right?
Right.
How do you split it? Like between, I would imagine you have educational topics, engagement topics, like something product, something fun. Do you have any like formula for how much of each ingredient should you put into the cake?
Yeah, no, no. That is a good question. So, a couple of things. One is, as much as I like to tell you, these are the three buckets or four buckets that work. Like it's different for every product and protocol. And how you can figure this out is like again, go back to the branding and positioning exercise. Why I emphasize so much on it is, like you have to know like what your product and protocol should sound and feel like. When I look at a tweet, I should like feel like, okay, this post is from Kazinia, like without having to look at the name, or this post is from Mia, because like we know like the personality that Kazinia is or Mia is. Same with products and protocols. If you look at Eigenlayer or Symbiotic or any of these like LRTs in the space, the voice and tone that they exude is very different from the voice and tone that a company like, let's say, Phantom or Pudgy Penguins would exude, which is very like fun and cheerful, versus like these two companies, which is more institutional, and it's like, hey, we are here to do something serious, right? So it really depends on like the brand that you're trying to take. What very often protocols and products do is like they try to be somewhere in the middle, which is like they'll try to be funny, and then they'll try to do like this entire thought leadership kind of thing that has just come up, and in the middle they'll pick up any macro meme that's trending, and then they'll try to like post it. If you're doing it from a personal account, it's different. If you're doing it from a company account, then it's not. If especially if you have like your branding and positioning in place, it comes off as off, it comes across as off. And also I would say the audiences for like the two types of products and protocols is also slightly different. So you want to like consider that as well. So in terms of like how much of each ingredient to use, like look at your branding and positioning, like whatever side you're choosing, it's going to be very apparent. So in one side, you're going to absolutely have GMs as one category that you can pretty much post every day and like be creative in some way or the form. In the other category, maybe I have a personal project which I'm close with. They're big in the space, but they don't post GM. Like it's written in our lexicon, like and in our voice and tone guide, like, hey, no posting GMs from our account. Like that's just not our brand.
You know what
Uh,
I love in terms of GM's posting? I had Jordan on my previous live stream from Hit Agent, like he founded Hit Agency, and he used to work with Pudgy Penguins when he just
okay.
started out in crypto. So what they do, they put GMs, GNs, and all of that into a GIF form.
Yeah.
And this is what I was doing for my previous projects. We did like GIFs, we did some illustrations based on that, and we just had maybe like a pool of 5 to 10 different illustrations. And we've been posting them whenever we didn't have something to post as a filler content,
Hmm.
or like whenever a market was in a certain mood. Like, let's say if
Right.
market was all red, we would do like a very sad GM and like ask, how are you feeling? Because
Yes.
people like to share, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
been
And
working, but
those are
just jam, it's just like do something, you know?
yeah,
You,
yeah, yeah, yeah. And like again, depending on your brand, it can be like really fun and playful, right? Like
mhm,
flipped on the other side, if you're doing it from a personal account, okay, I'll try two three concepts together. So if you're just posting like GM and a picture of you eating pasta, like let's
mhm,
take that as an example, right? So this is one way of doing it. It's very important that you like in a personal account, it's very important that you understand your following. So if your following is, let's say, 98 people, and you're posting a picture of you eating pasta, that post wouldn't usually like perform well. So what you have to do there is like you have to like you can, let's say, you are in the Bitcoin ecosystem, then you can write something on the lines of like, hey, good day not to talk about AI agents. So see,
mhm.
you've tied that to something that's happening in the macro, and now it's relevant. And even though your audience is small, a lot of people can actually relate to it because they're tired of hearing everything about AI agents, right? So like that is the way to like make any content rock. I feel like, understand your audience, especially if you're a personal profile. And a lot of people like come in and like they have a lot of following from Web 2, and they've not reintroduced themselves on what they're doing in Web 3, and this creates a lot of gaps, and they keep pushing out a lot of content without context. If I just post a picture of me eating pasta, there's no context to it, right? So if, let's say, Kevin from Monad like posts a picture of just like eating pasta, it would rock, like, because everybody in the space knows him. He has like what, more than 100K following or something. So everybody knows him. He has a strong built community already, right? So that post would work for him. That post wouldn't work for a profile just starting out, because like people don't know him. Like there has to be context in that picture, right? So yeah, like just these are like small cues in which, like everything that we're talking about like probably can be applied to things that you're doing. I did this other example of, like, like Kaito was very popular and yapping was very popular. So like just a piece of content on, let's say you're the marketing head of some ABC protocol. So you would write something on the lines of like marketing for ABC protocol, no. Marketing for yaps, sure. So like that is shit post that would perform because it's tied to something macro, right? And you're not
Yeah.
exactly talking about yaps because you don't know what to talk about yaps, but you're still like
Yeah.
saying, okay, yeah, okay, I have to be a part of this because everybody is apparently trying to be a part of this.
I really like this take because when you just started answering, you mentioned that when a person posts, you can like when you post, I can see that this is a post from you, even if I don't see the account name. And
Correct.
the same, like, I remember at DEF CON, Christina from Cookie Team, she was like doing this very fun mini interview series. And she was just showing different tweets from Claire, from Emily,
Yeah,
from
yeah, yeah.
Alex, from a couple of other people. And I guessed everything because
Hmm.
each of us has a certain narrative, right? As a
Yes,
person, like,
yes.
you have a character. This is what you're interested in, what you usually talk about, and so on. Like, this is what are your life interests. I think it's very important to basically understand that any product, any brand, it's the same. Like, brand personality is the same as like person's character. Because
Mm.
you mentioned that you cannot be in between, right? Because as a person, like, you're not going to be I don't know, wearing a gown today and like, I don't know, go in some like crazy outfit tomorrow, right? You most likely you have the same style. Most
Right,
likely, like, you like more or less the same things. So you have your direction, which for brands, I think it's okay to like search for your voice for a bit. But
right,
a lot of crypto brands, they're just trying to tap into any new narrative. They're almost trying to like change their entire essence. While I think if you remember from Web 2, we used to do this exercise, which I was always thinking that this is so stupid. And just now, years after, I'm just like, that's why. Because it was like, if your brand was a person coming to the party,
yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh my god, yes, yes, I remember them. Yeah, it yeah, it does not make sense, but yeah, like that is the way to do it.
yeah, it doesn't make sense, but it kind of does. Like, I
Yeah.
think in in our current conditions, it starts making sense because I feel like it's also, especially talking to founders, what I resorted to. I'm just trying to, whenever I cannot push my point, or like whenever I cannot explain something in the terms that I'm used to, I'm trying to find the, like the stupidest but the simplest analogy to what
Hmm.
I'm saying. Like, let's say if they don't understand why they need a strategy, I'm just asking them, how do you bake the cake? Like, you need ingredients, you need the recipe, right? You cannot like bake a cake with sugar and water. They're like, no,
Hmm.
it's going to be like sugary water. I'm like, exactly the same.
Hmm.
The same, like I tweeted the other day because I was trying to explain that we have to spend time on the narrative. We have to have all the product details and everything. And I'm like, I know you want to like move faster, but let's say I see you for the second time in my life. I'm like on the second call with the team, for example. Like, if you ask me to write your biography, anything I write is going to be bullshit because I don't know
Right.
you.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's going to be like fiction.
Exactly, and that hits hard, the analogy that you just said.
Mm.
Exactly, exactly. And also, like, it's a process. It's not a one time done thing, so it has to be done again and again and again and again. And like sitting down and like doing all these foundations of branding and positioning, or narrative, as you like to call it, like that is very critical, because like that, otherwise your marketing wouldn't stick. Let's put it like that, because you can keep doing like the next hypey thing, but like, okay, like, but what is beneath it? Like, what is your product and protocol about? Sure, I've seen you around, but I don't really know what you do, what you are about. And like, why should I even care, or why should I even give your brand a follow, or like be engaged in the community? So setting these foundations is really important before you start layering like any of the things on top, which is why I don't like to call it narrative work. It's more of the branding and positioning work, because I realize that narrative is like something that keeps changing in the market, and you have to align your like your product messaging to it. So I like to differentiate between like narrative and product messaging. I feel like the product messaging, which is what you're saying, is part of narrative, is something that stays consistent, and something that has to be done at the start before you start talking about narrative, or like how you're aligning with what is happening in the macro.
Yeah, I agree. I think there are so many different nuances, but
Yeah.
100%, everyone who works on marketing and who does it well, everyone is saying the same. Like, you have to have a narrative, you have to have like your brand positioning, you have to have the fundamentals, because otherwise, like, whatever you do in marketing, if you don't have this part set, first of all, as a founder, you're never going to be happy because you're going to feel that it's
Yeah,
not
yeah, yeah.
right. And
Correct.
then whoever you hire to your team or whoever you start working with, they're not going to understand, because they need like, I almost feel like, even for the teams, when they understand like what is, when you basically like take the product, you flesh it out, and you put like a nice wrapper on it, it's very exciting for the team, because all of a sudden
Right.
they have kind of like overarching goal that somebody put in beautiful words, and they're like, now we're doing that. We're not just building a
Hmm.
deck, we're
Yeah.
revolutionizing the space. And they have this like hero mentality.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I almost feel like I want to get spiritual here, which is like, like, like be successful. Like, okay, what the fuck does that mean? Like, you got to break that down. Like, it's, it's the
Yeah.
same thing, right? Otherwise, you'll always keep chasing like whoever is the next person around. Like, okay, what did they have? They have, and like never be
Yeah.
happy in the process. So yeah,
Mhm.
like that was a very like off track conversation, but yeah.
Yeah, but I feel like it's very important, and exactly like not chasing, because this is what I see, especially with new founders. They're trying to like, they like, I don't know, they like the website of XYZ company. They want exactly the same because they think that
Yeah.
this
Big time. Yes,
is
yes, yes.
right.
I usually try to stay away from these sounders. I have a very strong filtration process. No, 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 no. No, I'm sorry. I can't do this for you. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's like I try to educate them, because I see that technical founders have a completely different perspective on anything that's happening in the world, and they have like a very, it's almost as if we're looking at the same things through a completely different lens.
Mm.
And that's why
Yeah.
sometimes, like, when you tweak their perspective a bit, they're like, oh, okay, we trust you with anything, just like do whatever you feel like. But it takes this like gentle push.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, like, definitely, like, generally need more education for founders. It's so
Yeah.
interesting. Like, one of my team members yesterday was like, sure, we're creating all this content, but isn't this content all for marketers who already get marketing? Like, why are we trying to do this? I was like, oh my God, you're right. Like, we should create more content for founders, actually. They need this more than the marketers out here.
Yeah. I don't know if they're reading. Sometimes I have like,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
they're like, I loved it.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, I
usually
know.
marketers, reading marketers.
I
But at
know.
least I think it's like, if we can find ways to help marketers like push
Yeah.
actually the right agenda, I think this is how we convert the space, because there are also a lot of marketers, especially like fresh to the space, who are agreeing to everything simply because like they want to get the experience, they want to get the job. But I feel like it's almost always backfires. It's like if
Hmm.
you're doing the bad job, essentially, founder's not gonna like it, you're gonna lose that job. So it's at the end like everyone everyone
Yeah.
loses.
Yeah, yeah. And I feel like or marketers, everybody needs to educate themselves on this thing because, like, otherwise, exactly to your point of they'll say yes to pretty much everything that the founder says. And it's not
Yeah.
realistic. Like, you need to, like, really make this founder sit down and have, like, a tough conversation with them. It's so funny. I was just saying this the other day to Justin on my space. So I did this one space on, like, it had a very cheesy title of, like, how to get 300K as a marketer.
Yeah,
But
what's this one?
yeah. Yeah, so so I think I was having this conversation with him. Oh my
Mhm.
God, I lost my train of thoughts. But I think we were
For
having this
having tough
discussion of.
conversations with
Yeah, yeah,
founders.
yeah. Yes, yes. I was telling him that 90% of my job, it just feels like coaching the founder versus actually doing my job. So, and he was like, "Oh yeah," like, and I was like, "Yeah." I mean, like that is what I feel like. Nothing else. I was telling him about this like one founder who raised 25 million, in his Series A, and is like pretty good in the space, I'd say, but still like needed so much coaching on like just marketing. And I feel
Mhm.
like just having conversations were like the major like turn points for his protocol and like how we were marketing the company all along.
Yeah. Yeah, honestly, 100% agree to that. But for me, like, as my personality, I'm always searching for meanings in everything.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes when I was doing marketing, I'm like, I really don't understand why there is a need for that. Just recently, like quite recently, I'm like, ah, that's why. So
Yeah.
it's not exactly like in the hours you put, it's in the perspective. Because sometimes, like, especially when you have a lot of experience in the space, you look at the situation differently. And like
Mm,
your opinion can save them like thousands of dollars,
yeah.
can save them a lot of time, a lot of effort, or just like really create something so cool that is going to be like their foundation for everything else.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
So,
I totally agree. And also like founders have to like come out and acknowledge this more that, hey, like these conversations have literally saved their protocols and products at times, which I think they should do more of.
yeah,
It'll help
I will my
marketers.
sweetness also. We actually have a really good comment here, and this is something I wanted to ask you.
Uh-huh.
It's about like how to crush it in B2B Web3 content. Yeah, actually,
Yeah.
this year I'm focusing, not that I'm focusing like intentionally on that, but I have all my projects are doing B2B technologies. And it's always a question like, is it different from B2C? Because you are essentially marketing to, you're selling the product to other companies,
Mm-hmm.
but essentially you're, at least my take, that you're marketing to the end users of the company you're selling to,
Mm-hmm.
if it makes sense. So it's like
Yeah,
B2B.
yeah. So it's B2B2C.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the most important thing in crushing it in B2B Web3? So I have a little bit of a hot take here. I would say a lot of it depends on like whether you're talking about a product or a service here. So I want to caveat it a little bit. If you're talking about a product, there's this one product called Simple Hash,
Mhm.
which I was a big fan of. They just got acquired by Phantom. Shout out to Ollie and Josh. But so they were doing crazy revenue last year when I talked to them, and they had no social media presence. They had like pretty much nothing out there when it comes to like any of the hypey stuff. What they did was like they did some very good docs. They had a very good product that a lot of people were like using and all of that. What they did was they created some good sales assets, and sales was pretty much driving everything. So I forgot like what that is called in Web 2, which is like very much like sales led everything. But sales like marketing is like everything in B2B, I'd say. And if you are a B2B product, and if you feel like you are really high end and like you only want to, let's say, talk to like CTOs of Coinbase and all these other big projects in the space, I don't know if you really have to be active on Twitter that much. Like B2B is like your primary game. And if you have a background like Ollie did in this case, which is very strong, backed by like Alliance or any big VC in the space, your VC is also going to give you like a lot of introductions and things. So it really depends on how big your target market is, like who are the people you're trying to reach out to. If you feel like your investors, your connections and your BD can pretty much drive that effort, I would say like don't worry about like any of the B2C materials. Focus entirely on creating solid sales assets. So I would record myself on video walking through the product. I would try to create as many like content pieces long form on like why this product deserves its place and like what is the problem and use case it's solving for. Usually like trying to reach to CTOs in the company is very difficult, like because it's like multi persona, like the selling that you're doing. So usually like BD people in the space are easy to reach out to because they're always out there. So let's say you can reach out to the BD person in Coinbase, but to talk to the CTO of Coinbase would be difficult. So you have to like really think through the different layers. So I would get somebody who's done B2B selling before, and I would get them to like tell you about all the type of content pieces that you have to create. So I would create a content piece for the B2B guy, so he can sell it internally and get the conversation going, and then you have a group, and then you can start doing the conversation there. Even then, if it's, let's say, so Simple Hash, I think for every project that they would 100,000 would be like the minimum, let's say. hypothetically speaking. So for a project like this, I would usually, it's going to be, like I said, it's the sales cycle itself is going to be 2 or 3 months long. So I would, like, again, do a lot of assignment selling in the group itself, which means that, I'm going to like send a lot of content and content pieces and a lot of material that is addressing like each of the persona that's involved in the buying journey. So if it's the person who is like tech lead and doing managing all the integrations, so I would create a content piece for him to make it as easy as possible to tell him like, okay, if you're integrating the product, how does it look like? I would create a content piece for the finance guy to tell him exactly, hey, if this you integrate this is how it looks like, this is how you will manage, this is how much cost it's going to cut, and all of that. So I would do very targeted long form content pieces, and I would let BD be my top of the funnel awareness. I would not do crypto Twitter. Like, that was a very long-winded answer, but I hope it answers. And
Interesting.
there are a lot of protocols in the space who are doing crazy revenue, and you don't know about them.
Yeah, that's true. I feel like it's also, it's a longer conversation because majority of B2B protocols, they want to be very active on crypto Twitter because they're interested in like they either have a token and they're interested in token
Right.
holders, or they're planning to launch on exchanges. And
Mm.
that's why they need like a lot of buzz around them because essentially if you want to get the revenue, you don't need to be on crypto Twitter, right? Because you are not selling to your users are other protocols, so you would rather reach out to them directly, like through sales, through BD, and so on. But I think it's like in B2B, what I usually advise to do twofold. Like, first of all, exactly as you said, tie it to sales and try to figure out like everything that your sales guys can potentially ask from content. Like, let's say, starting from docs, because I think docs is also content. And for some reason,
Yeah.
I think it's one of the most awful exercises in our space because all the founders are suffering when I'm telling them that we're going to rewrite the docs. And literally every single company I work with, I'm like, docs are not right. We have to
Yeah.
redo it.
Yeah.
For me, this has to be like encyclopedia
Mm.
of this project. Like I need to know everything from it, no matter who I am, like whether I'm a potential community member, whether I'm a potential user, investor, ecosystem project, like you name it, I have to go to docs and like find all the information there.
Mm.
Then the same for the website, then long form articles. I think what converts really well, at least from my experience, is use cases. Like we've
Mm.
done the use cases with Anchor, and we literally like broke it. So Anchor provides RPCs, so it's Web3 infrastructure. So we've broken our client list into categories, like let's
Mm.
say DeFi, gaming, Depend, and so on. And we basically created a use case with one of major clients in each category. Like let's say for DeFi, it was Sushi Swap, and literally it was kind of like a walkthrough. What was their initial issue? Why they decided to choose Anchor over competitors? What was their point A, and what was their point B after they started working with Anchor?
Mm.
Um, we also like done a little trick because as we're in the crypto space, I think everything has to be like nicely looking and very visual, even for developers. Like we all
Yeah.
like me kind of things, and like
Yeah.
open something and be just like, oh, it's pretty. I'm gonna read
Yeah.
it because
Yeah.
I think,
We like the tech, but we are here for the memes.
to be honest, like I think we're reading insane amount of information during the day.
Mm.
Like I was talking to my sister and she's launching her business in art and like traditional art.
Mm.
And she told me, she's like, yeah, I need to hire an assistant because I cannot answer 50 messages per day. And I looked at her and I'm like, what do you mean?
Do you know the number of messages I respond to every
And I'm like, what do you mean? I'm okay.
day?
So yeah, just like whenever you can make something like
Yeah.
easy for the eyes, just go for it because this is
Mhm.
what immediately sets you apart from competitors in any content.
Yeah.
So basically, what we did with use cases, we converted them into like a one pagers. We've done nice design, posted them on the website, posted them as the long form article, like an explicit version of it, and also posted it as a visual for crypto Twitter. And people just started sharing it. and we
Right.
started gaining traction because back at the time, Anchor had an issue that community was full of moon boys, and we wanted the
Mm.
developers to pay attention to us.
Right, right.
So that's
No,
what it is.
yeah. I think I very much second your point of like I spoke very much in the SaaS and Web3 model, which is also like a model that I've worked a lot in because like I came from the SaaS world. But it really depends if you look at the matrix, like centralized, decentralized, token, no token. So the trickiest is B2B with token because you know you are selling to like other companies and then you're trying to do a token. So which means that retail will be involved at some point because they're going to be
Mhm.
holding tokens. So which means that again you have to be more out there, you have to do all the marketing and all of that, and it's all often tricky to like tie the two things together. I
Mhm.
feel like SaaS is like a clear structure that I just told you. It's like just how you would market like a Web2 product. Same with agencies also, I feel like. But yeah, like it definitely helps with awareness, but like B2B will solve a lot of the problems. Like I would say 80% of the problems that you're looking to like just solve.
Mhm.
That is pretty much it. And I definitely agree, with like all the content pieces, like creating the use case content pieces, just talking
Mhm.
to your users, I feel like that will give you a lot of insights. So talk to your sales guy and see like what are the objections that come up, like what are the problems when
Mhm.
when integrating the solution, or what are the top things that founders ask when you say, hey, I have a solution like this that will solve this problem, and then that will give you inspiration for a lot of content ideas and pieces that you can create.
Actually, sales guys and community guys are just like a golden source of information
Yeah,
because they have direct feedback from your potential users and community members.
yeah, I,
Like
I feel like
ones.
yeah, and like social listening is what it's called, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, for
Mhm.
community at least. I feel like a lot of people who are in B2B want to create content that is more B2C style, because like again that is what everybody is doing, and that is why we need more educated marketers in the space. Because
Yeah.
if the only numbers that you can see are your Twitter likes and like impressions, then of course you want to do that, because like that is the only thing that feels tangible. But like if you have a marketer who's well educated on how a funnel works and can actually track, okay, like BD is giving us a lot of introductions, that is not really the problem. The problem is like we're not able to further the conversation from the place that we are in. So probably like creating more thought leadership pieces would be more helpful than creating like all of these hype content pieces that we are thinking
Mhm.
about. And like just tracking like number of booked calls, and like from number of booked calls, how many of them actually lead to the second call or the third call, or maybe like how many of them actually convert. And like having all these numbers, when you start seeing these numbers, you stop worrying about like all of these things. That's why we need more educated marketers who can make this founder sit down and say, okay, sure, we will do the Twitter content and all of the things that you're talking about, but let's talk about like where the revenue is coming from, and like
Mhm.
again, what is the long term play, what is the goal we are looking at, and like what is it
Exactly.
that you want to do
What
at
is
the
the
end. Yeah,
goal? What is the goal? Because
what is the
like
goal?
a lot of founders for B2B protocols, I feel like I heard this quite a few times that they have everything figured on the sales side. They have a great pipeline. They already have clients. They're getting like clients from their network. So they don't need help with like traditional B2B marketing. They
Hmm.
need like supporting stuff. They need to appeal to community because eventually they want to do something bigger with a protocol. And
Right.
then it's totally different game plan.
Mm. Yeah, and also like the playbook is very different and the audience is very different. I've seen inversely also, when again, when you've not given this enough consideration and thought, what you often end up doing is you end up, especially as a B2B product, what you end up doing is you end up creating a Twitter, but you only like keep spitting out product marketing stuff from it, like everything about the tech, and that is not going to work. Like that is not what Twitter is about. So the content pieces are also very different. So if you're doing a B2B play which is like very revenue focused and you're talking all about the product, when you are doing assignment selling to like your prospects or whoever they are, if you do the same thing on like Twitter, it's definitely not going to work. If you just like keep
Mhm.
marketing all of that, it's not going to work. So yes, the audience is very different, and the play is also very different. So like again, very clear, have clarity on what your goals are, have clarity on like again how you're going to achieve that, and all of it. It's a lot of the foundational work of like, say it again.
Get branding.
Get branding. Yeah, exactly. Get branding, get your voice and tone straight, like be more playful. Like we want to see this fun
Yeah.
stuff, honestly. Yeah.
I think also, like, because anyone who's building the ecosystem layer ones, they're essentially B2B, right? Like it's pure
Right.
B2B. But at the same time, I feel like protocols like Chain, Monad, they kind
Mm.
of wreck the system because the content that they're posting, it's incredible. It's unhinged. It's like it goes it doesn't go along with anything you're supposed to do for B2B in a traditional sense.
Mm,
because it's very much like user focused content, but they're
right.
creating huge communities around that. And I feel like now this is the expectation of B2B protocols, that you kind of like do both. You help them get the clients, you kind of appeal to all the groups, which is, I think, a huge challenge.
Mm,
It means
mm-hmm,
that your messaging has to be like twofold, threefold, or even bigger. And
right.
then you kind of set on more generalized message so that it appeals to everyone.
Yeah, yeah. What was the question again?
No question, just
Okay. Yeah. Um,
just
like honestly, like I love Beta Chain, like Eclipse, Monad, all of these ecosystems. I feel a little differently about the tech because like I talk to
Mhm,
founders and I see, there are a lot of challenges, especially like Beta Chain. Initially, I think now it's become much better, but even to like deploy anything there is like a real
mhm,
challenge. I passed out on an opportunity to Angel in Ooga Booga, like
mhm,
Kevin's project. Like I regret it, but still, I feel like the tech was not there. So I felt like, okay, there's a gap there. The marketing is there, the tech is not there. So I had different feelings about it, but for sure, like all of these ecosystems have built their own audiences. And I feel like
mhm.
all the products that are being built on top of these protocols
Yeah.
now have access to these audiences, which makes it so easy because they have already solved the marketing problem or a larger part of it. So when products like
Yeah.
co-market with the protocol, it's so much easier for them. And like
Mhm.
again, co-marketing and aligning with the protocol, if you're a product, like that's a different discussion. And more and more projects I feel like should do it right and make the full use of it. But definitely as an L1, L2, like whatever your protocol is, if it's a protocol and products are being built on top, definitely like having your own marketing base solves a lot of the challenges for
Mhm.
products that will be built on
Yeah.
top.
I think I have a controversial take that attention is liquidity, essentially.
Yeah, that is very tweetable. Attention is liquidity. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
gonna take that. Yeah, because I just remembered when you said about Berachain. I know so many Arbitrum builders that moved to Berachain just when
Mm,
they like started marketing, because they were like, Arbitrum has lower liquidity. Berachain promises to solve liquidity issues. We're going to
mm,
build it.
mm. Yeah. And also like Bella Chain has more attention. So like I said, like products think like, hey, my attention problem is already solved because like this protocol has so much attention.
Mhm.
It's the same thing of like what is relevant macro, right? So if you
Yeah,
as a protocol are trying to align yourself with what is the macro narrative, even products and developers that are building on top will try to align with like whatever
yeah,
protocol is like trying to bank on whatever is the macro or has
mhm,
dominated the market.
for sure. So many things we can discuss. I just checked
Yeah.
it and we're going over the hour, but I feel like we can go for another 5 hours. We have a lot of
No. Yeah,
left.
yeah, for sure. And like we didn't even touch on KPIs. I wanted to talk about like awareness and conversion and like
Yeah,
conversion per funnel step or whatever.
you have
But yeah.
time. I have another like 5, 10 minutes.
No, I think that is a different discussion altogether. We can
Yeah,
do another sesh where I can invite you and we can talk about it.
yeah, I would love to. Let's do that.
Okay. Let's do
It-
that. Okay.
It's great.
Okay.
Thank you so much for joining.
Yeah.
Honestly, I enjoyed our conversation and it's a great take. And I hope that everyone who is listening or who's going to listen this in the recording, it's going to be easier for you to get started with your content strategy or like tweak something so that it
Yeah.
really converts.
Yeah, and guys, like and share. That's how Kazinia knows like you like seeing this content, and probably we can do another one. Yeah, talking about like funnels and conversion and all of that KPI stuff.
Yes, I love that. I can't say that, but I love people who can say that.
Okay.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you
Okay.
so much, Mia.
Yeah,
See you
thanks for
soon.
having me. This was really fun.
It's very fun. See you soon.
Bye
Bye.
bye.